Imagine inheriting a house from your beloved grandfather only for your family to demand that you give it away. What would you do if your entitled sister tried to move in without permission and your own parents backed her up? This is exactly what happened to today's storyteller, who found himself fighting against his entire family just to keep what was rightfully his. But when his sister took things too far, he was forced to make a decision that would change everything. Was he in the wrong, or was this the only way to finally stand up for himself? Let's dive into this wild AITA story and find out. I, 28M, recently inherited my grandfather's house, and ever since, my family has been making my life a living hell. For some background, my grandfather and I were extremely close. He was the only family member who ever truly supported me. When I was a kid, he took care of me while my parents worked long hours. When I struggled in school, he tutored me. When I was old enough to drive, he helped me fix up an old car so I wouldn't have to rely on my parents for rides. He was always there. My younger sister, Lisa, 25F, on the other hand, barely acknowledged him. She only visited on holidays when our parents forced her to. She never called him just to check in, never helped him with anything, and frankly, I think she saw him as an obligation rather than a family member. Fast forward to last year, Grandpa's health started to decline. He was in and out of the hospital, and I was the only one who consistently cared for him. I drove him to appointments, picked up his medications, handled his bills when he got too weak, and spent hours just keeping him company so he wouldn't feel alone. My parents and Lisa? They were too busy to help. Grandpa passed away 6 months ago, and it broke me. But the one thing that gave me comfort was knowing that I could keep his house, the place where I had all my best memories with him. The will and the immediate fallout. When the will was read, my parents and Lisa were shocked to learn that he had left the house solely to me. Lisa immediately lost it. What the hell? He left you the whole house? That's not fair. She turned to my parents, looking for support. And, of course, they immediately backed her up. This must be a mistake, my mom said, her voice shaking. There's no way he would have done this on purpose. But it wasn't a mistake. Grandpa had made his wishes crystal clear. He had even written a letter to be read alongside the will. Opie, you are the only one who ever cared for me without expecting anything in return. You took care of me when no one else would. This house is my way of thanking you. Lisa's face turned red as she read those words. I could see her practically shaking with rage. That's not fair, she shouted. I need the house more than Opie does. I'm still living with Mom and Dad. He doesn't even have a family. He doesn't need all that space. My dad, trying to keep the peace, put his hand on my shoulder. Son, we think it would be best if you shared. Lisa has been struggling. You could at least sell the house and give her half. I actually laughed at how ridiculous that sounded. Grandpa made his decision. If he wanted Lisa to have half the house, he would have said so. Lisa clenched her fists. You manipulated him. You were always his little favorite. I just stared at her. Or maybe I said he gave the house to the one person who actually gave a damn about him. That shut her up for the moment, but I could tell this wasn't over. The harassment begins over the next few weeks. My parents kept calling me, trying to reason with me. The calls started out subtle, little comments about how Lisa was struggling financially, how hard it was for her to find a place of her own, how I had everything while she had nothing. Then the guilt tripping got worse. She's your sister, Opie. You should want to help her. Family shares, Opie. That's what family does. Your grandfather wouldn't have wanted this rift in the family. But I knew the truth. This wasn't about need. This was about entitlement. Lisa had spent her entire life getting whatever she wanted from our parents, and now she expected the same from me. Then Lisa took things to another level. Lisa tries to move in. One evening, I came home from work and found Lisa standing in my driveway with moving boxes. What are you doing? I asked, already dreading the answer. She grinned, completely ignoring my horrified expression. I figured you'd come around eventually, so I'm just getting ahead of it. Where do you want me to put my stuff? I blinked. Lisa, you can't be serious. She rolled her eyes. Come on, Opie. You don't need all this space. You have 3 bedrooms. It's only fair that I get one. I was stunned by the audacity. I told her firmly that she was not moving in. She started crying loudly, making a huge scene. I can't believe you do this to your own sister. Do you really hate me that much? Neighbors peeked out their windows. I felt humiliated, but I stood my ground. Lisa, get your stuff off my property. Now, after more screaming and crying, she finally left. The final straw, my parents tried to ambush me. A few days later, my parents showed up unannounced. We need to talk, my dad said, pushing past me into the house. My mom followed, already looking like she was about to cry. We've been thinking, she said, and we really believe the best thing for the family is for you to sell the house and split it with Lisa. I sighed, trying to stay calm. I already told you that's not happening. She sniffled. She has nothing, Opie. You have everything. Don't you feel guilty? I stared at her. I have everything? Mom, I worked my ass off for everything I have. Lisa made terrible choices. That's not my fault. My dad, clearly frustrated, crossed his arms. It's not just about Lisa. Your mother, and I feel like we should have some say in this too. We raised you after all. I blinked. Are you actually trying to claim that I owe you my inheritance? My mom sniffled. It's not about owing. It's about family. We share things in this family. I shook my head. No, you share things with Lisa. I was always on my own. They didn't deny it. That's when I made my decision. Get out, I said. My mom gasped. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out. If you can't respect me, my home, or grandpa's wishes, then you don't belong here. My dad's face turned red. You're making a big mistake, Opie. But I didn't back down. I stood my ground until they finally left. The aftermath. Lisa's final attempt. A few days later, I came home to find Lisa trying to unlock my front door. She had a spare key. My parents had kept a copy and given it to her. She had a suitcase with her, actually planning to move in without my permission. I called the police. Lisa freaked out, crying about how I was ruining her life, but I didn't care. The cops made her leave, and I changed the locks that night. Since then, I've gone no contact with Lisa and low contact with my parents. They're still furious, saying that I humiliated Lisa. But at this point, I don't care. This house was never theirs to take. So, AITA for kicking my parents out and refusing to share my inheritance? So, what do you think? Was Opie justified in standing his ground and cutting off his entitled family? Or should he have handled things differently? Was his sister's behavior completely out of line? Or do you think she had a right to be upset? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another crazy tale from Reddit. Until next time, stay kind, but don't let anyone walk all over you.